And let's talk to John Mayer, ex-BBC producer, author of How Do We Pay for the BBC After 2027, amongst many others. Very good morning to you, John.
Hello, good morning, mate.
We've been having a very lively conversation this morning about cabinet ministers taking money away from pensioners' heating allowances and then claiming their own second home heating allowance. But it seems the BBC, to a lesser extent, has wasted some licence payers' money on taxis, on trains and hotel bookings that were never used. 2,500 rail tickets, 324 rooms and 1,581 taxis paid for, but cancelled. And they can't get refunds. So 235,000 quid down the Swanee.
Mike, look, this is a real non-story, this one, isn't it? This is all over 5 years. 79 hotel rooms cancelled between 19,000 people. You know, it's a Sun non-story. There are far bigger things you can.
Well, of course there are bigger things, but what it points to is that the BBC wastes money because it doesn't have to worry about it.
So does every organisation. You know,
well, we don't do it here.
Especially in the public sector. They always... Look, let me tell you, when I was a kid researcher on Nationwide, years ago, 40 years ago, there was a board in the middle of the room that told you the cost of everything. So this photograph would cost you that, that graphic will cost you that. Now, that should be in every BBC production office. I'm not sure if it is.
Yeah, and of course, because in most newspaper offices these days, you're not allowed to do things like that because there's simply, you know, there isn't the money. There's accountants saying, no, you can't do that. You can't pay for this, you can't pay for that. I mean, I know from personal experience, and you'll know this better than me, when I lived in Scotland and I'd go on BBC Newsnight Scotland, if I was in Linlithgow, which is a little town outside of Edinburgh, you know, they would pay me a fee, but the cost of the taxi to and from the studio was more than the fee. And I used to say to them, you know, I said, if you let me drive in and pay me the cost of the taxis, we can't do that, they said. The system says we have to send a car for you. So the fee for the appearance was about 100 quid. The taxis was about 150.
I know. Look, I mean,
it's mad.
BBC and other things, you know, 200,000 to Hugh Edwards, much worse. You know, all media organisations waste money. They all waste money. You know, even talkTV. Now, what was far more interesting over the weekend, Mike, in terms of media stories, was I was amazed and shocked at how much Nigel Farage is paid.
Why?
He's paid 3,000 quid a show.
Yeah, well, actually, that's not what he says. He says that the money's paid to his company, and that's not a show fee necessarily. That's a contract that he's got with GB News, which is, of course, a private organisation. And the difference between, for example, him and Gary Lineker is that Gary Lineker's paid from the public purse, and that's why people have got such a focus on the news coming out of BBC. Land.
Gary Lineker gets 1.3, Farage gets 1.2 from
well, I know who I'd prefer to watch.
Well, no, I prefer Lineker, but, you know, it's good. All of these salaries...
Well, that's your choice, but unfortunately, you don't get to go to jail if you don't watch Nigel Farage and you don't wish to pay for it, whereas you do if you don't want to watch Gary Lineker.
I think nobody's gone to jail in the last few years.
That's not true. There's loads of people going to jail every year.
Prove it, Mike. Prove it.
Prove it? OK. Well, I will. It's always a bad thing to say, John, to me on this programme, because I'll find you statistics before the end of the interview to prove it. There are people getting locked up and prosecuted every single year by the BBC, in their hundreds. And in fact, some of them, most of them, are elderly women.
You tell me the numbers of elderly women who are locked up, you know, in the last 2 years.
Well, they shouldn't be locking up anyone. That's the point.
But look, all salaries should be out in the public. Your salary...
Why?
Everybody's salary...
I'm not paid by the public purse. Why should my salary be published?
Because... Transparency, total media transparency. I mean, how many hotel rooms has Talk not taken up? How many train tickets have you not taken?
Well, I bet you it's a lot less than the BBC. 235,000.
19,000 people, Mike. 19,000. You know, it's a national broadcaster. You know, but with all due respect, Talk is not a national broadcaster, nor is GB News. Of course, the thing.
No, but we are commercial organisations which rise and fall based upon commercial activity, and BBC doesn't have to worry about that, and that's why the BBC gets away with so much. That's how they can pay people ridiculous amounts of money for doing jobs which they would never get that money for elsewhere.
Look, I mean, the BBC should be much, much more commercial. I mean, they have an outfit called BBC Studios, which is where an awful lot of the commerce is done. And they're actually not... Do you know how much they contribute to the public sector, public service purse every year? £300 million, which is peanuts. I mean, their turnover is billions.
Well, you can say that's peanuts, but the people who listen to this show and who watch this show find these numbers absolutely staggering, and find that people get paid as much as they do get paid. They find it quite incredible.
I'm staggered at Farage's payment. I thought it was 600,000 a year. In fact, it's double that. You know?
Well, he's a very popular man, you know.
Well, all right, he's getting his market price. So is Gary Lineker.
Well, Gary Lineker's not getting his market price because Gary Lineker gets paid by the public purse. And as I said, if he wanted to leave the BBC and get a job elsewhere, he wouldn't get that kind of money because he doesn't.
It's still a market. It's still a market. You know, believe me, I'm sure you'll find Gary Lineker is hawking himself around broadcasters, and I'm sure you'll find they'll be offering him a lot more money.
But when you consider the amount of work he does for the BBC, which is to pre-record a programme on a Saturday afternoon, for which he gets paid very handsomely, I think you'll find that whenever he does any other work for anybody else, he gets paid pro rata. So he doesn't get that kind of money because it's a very short amount of time they employ him for.
Mike, don't let facts get in the way of a good story.
Facts, I know you're not keen on facts, being a former BBC man.
Have you found?
But let me give you this. Let me give you the latest person that was locked up, right, by the BBC. A chronically ill grandmother was from West Belfast, jailed after not paying a TV licence. Anne Smith, her name is, from Polglass, was imprisoned after she did not pay a £1,100 court fine for failing to pay for her TV licence.
When was that?
Absolutely extraordinary.
When was that?
It was in the last couple of years.
Was the last couple of years. So how many other grandmothers and old ladies have been locked up?
You should be ashamed, John, that there's even one.
No, I mean, if you don't pay your car tax, you get locked up. You know, if you don't pay your council tax, you get locked up.
But you should not be locked up for not watching television, should you?
No, you're getting a service. You get a service.
No, I can't believe you're not condemning this, John. I mean, we may have to ban you from the show for being completely outrageously ghastly.
Don't cancel me yet, Mike. No.
I have to cancel you unless you condemn this ridiculous ruling. You're not going to condemn sending an old grandmother chronically ill to prison. You're not condemning that. The licence fee
is an archaic system, and something needs to be done to bring it up to date. And you know my view. I think there should be a hybrid licence fee, £100. You get everything from the BBC. Everything else you pay for the other side of the aisle.
They've locked up, right, since 1995. They've locked up in the BBC for not paying their TV licences very nearly 2,200 people. 1,444 men, 754 women. Absolutely outrageous.
What's the source of that? That's a false
Full
thing.
Fact is the source of that.
What is?
Full Fact. Yeah.
Well,
you're going to dispute that as well, or
the BBC doesn't lock people up. It's a
well, they do. They've just locked up 2,100 of them.
No,
you asked me for proof. I've given it to you. Like all lefties, you can't accept it.
Mike, the BBC is not a police force.
Well, why are they locking people up then?
They don't lock people up.
They've just done it.
People don't pay their licence fees. They go to court and they usually get a little fine. Right, that figure of 2,000.
What else are they going to start locking people up for? Not watching EastEnders. We're going to punish you for not watching strictly.
Not paying the council tax.
Not watching strictly.
Not paying any other, licence fees.
Unbelievable. You're a very bad man, John. You're a very bad man. I can't have this.
See you soon.
See you later. John Mayer, ex-BBC producer, doesn't think that locking up people for paying their TV licence is a bad thing. Amazing. Absolutely incredible.